Hey,
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I'm sorry, Dave. You said you were working, so I'm like, okay. But go ahead. This is all you.
hey, everybody! It's Dave here, and Darren's not here yet, but we have Tyler, the one and only, the one that puts out 473 different articles over the last 3 days of the draft, and has been absolutely banging it out of the park. And is he extremely happy or what? We'll find out why next on this special episode of Two Old Bloggers. Let's rock! Vikings First and SKOL presents This Week in Vikings Land with Darren and Dave, your two old bloggers. And here we are again. You saw some of my art during the intro. Who of all the draftees in the 2023 draft, the ones selected by Minnesota that the Vikings got, will be the next art piece? We shall find out. And for some reason, my internet starts to take a dump, but it's still
Yay!
okay. We'll do fine. We'll be fine.
Yeah.
We'll skip the tweet because I haven't got it ready. But as of right now, we have Darren on his way. He had to go pick up his daughter. That's why he's running late. But the Vikings, over 3 days, have made 6 total picks. 4 of them today. And we're ready to talk about them. Let's start with the first one today. Round 4, pick 134. The Vikings selected safety / cornerback, your typical DB that goes up on the list, Jay Ward. Tyler, what did you think of Jay Ward?
Jay Ward was at the Senior Bowl, and quite frankly, he really didn't stand out. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing for a defensive back, Dave, and it's kind of the same thing for an offensive lineman. If you don't stand out, that could mean you're just doing your job and nobody really notices you, and sometimes that's awesome. I think he's exactly the kind of guy that Brian Flores wants. Physical.
Okay.
He's going to punch you in the mouth. He's got that slot versatility. I'm not quite sure how the Vikings are going to use him. I know Kwesi is done with his press availability already for the day, and we'll be able to have some conversations. At Vikings Wire, we're going to have full detailed film breakdowns of every single pick and the top UDFAs in the coming days. I understand the pick. I didn't like it in comparison to what was on the board. I really was pounding the table for Darius Rush. He was there. Vikings didn't take him. Now, you're not always going to get your guys. It's just a fact of life. But
well, as Mary says, Flores, this was his guy. He obviously had the yay or nay say on that. So, and we can hear that Odie is commenting as well. You muted.
Yeah, because Odie's squeaking. Mom just got home, so he'll be out of the office here pretty quick. But he found his squeaker toy, so he's just enjoying having a toy and sitting next to Dad for a minute. So he's being a good boy. But yeah, and so here's the tough part, kind of from an industry perspective. I come on here and I talk about, hey, what do I like the pick? It's not just about player, it's about fit, and it's about the board. So when I say Darius Rush was higher on my board, I would have much preferred to have Darius Rush on my football team than Jay Ward. And it's not necessarily an indoctrination on what Jay Ward is going to be as a football player. It's just I believe Darius Rush has a bigger and better ceiling than Jay Ward. And Odie, you goober, he's still chewing on his little squeaker toy. And that's normal. And that's why, like, when you hear draft analysts kind of talk like that, it's through the context of, hey, we want this guy over this guy because of we believe that they're just a better potential pro. But it doesn't necessarily mean we think they're going to be a bad pro. And I think Jay Ward has the ability to be a good slot safety in the National Football League, especially in the style of defense that Brian Flores is going to run. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to be physical. He's both of those things. He's got good instincts. Yeah, there's going to be work that needs to be done. There's a reason why he's available in round 4, but he went at 134. He was 116 on the consensus board, or he was 108. I can't remember. I can't remember how to pronounce his name. It's not, it's like Jacquelin. He's the second female sounding name defensive lineman we've drafted from LSU, and we know how the first one turned out. Danielle Hunter turned out pretty damn well. So there's that kind of connection.
Jacquelin Roy, defensive tackle out of LSU. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, Ward was 179 in the wait, hold on, Michael. Clarify for me. The PFN board or the consensus board, because they are different. They include the PFN board in the consensus board. So if you would clarify that for me, please, I'd be most grateful, because I don't have time to look that up myself.
Well, and by consensus board, you're talking about Arif Hassan's consensus board.
Mm-hmm. And right. that is on PFN. So that I'm just hoping to get that clarification.
It's also on the network he does his work. And the difference is and he explained it on one of his shows. The difference is, I want to say even our show, most consensus boards take the average of where people select them, and that's where they go. Arif does more than that. He weighs them,
mm-hmm.
and so he gets better results. It's not an average. It's where, like, if somebody took, hey, one guy had him at number 1 and one guy had him at number 100, he'd be there, consensus board at 50. But if
mm-hmm.
you had 20 people and they all had him, 1 to 10, and then the lowest guy had him at 100, the majority of it, when you average that and then add weight to where they think they're going, is going to be higher than throwing him at 50. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people just do the mash of, this is the high, this is the low, so we're going to throw him here in the middle. That isn't what he does on his board, and his board is more accurate because of it.
And that's why Arif's the best in the business when it comes to this kind
mm-hmm.
of stuff, because he takes that extra step to try and be more predictive, more accurate, draw more of what the consensus is actually saying instead of just a number aggregate. Like, that little detail makes such a big difference. And I really appreciate anybody who's putting in that kind of effort. And that's why we love Arif Hassan here on Vikings First and SKOL. He did a pre-draft episode with us. Obviously mm-hmm. it's a tiny bit outdated, but he talks a lot about the consensus board, what it means for the Vikings and how it correlates based on the data we had at the time with what Kwesi Adofo-Mensah is doing in terms of the NFL draft. So Arif's just the best. Michael, thank you for that clarification. I didn't think he was that high. It must have been Jacquelin Roy, who is at the 116 mark on the consensus board, which also makes sense. But the weird thing about this cornerback class, and let's touch on this. I'm not going to make excuses for us going against the consensus board per se, but this cornerback class was so deep
mm-hmm.
That there can be wide variance. Like Corey Trice just got picked like 3 picks ago, like 241, 242. He was Brett Coleman's cornerback 5.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there were a lot of people in the industry that were very high on him, a lot of people that were very low. That, like, the wide variance is kind of normal when you have a super deep position group. Now, you're going to have some consensus at the top. Devin Witherspoon and Christian Gonzalez were the runaway 1 and 2. 3 was like a split between Deonte Banks, Joey Porter Jr. Some people had Cam Smith that high. But at the end of the day, you have like some consensus at the top. But that middle ground, like a guy like Darius Rush, like he could have been anywhere from like 7 or 8 to like 18 just because of how deep this quarterback class was. And I'm not super concerned in that sense about going against the consensus board, just because it's, you know what? It's fine just because it's such a deep group, but it's something that you can't ignore. I'm actually gonna include that in my data research because I keep tracks of all the picks. I'm gonna add the consensus board ranking. But it's something to be aware of.
It is. Now, we talked about Jay Ward and touched on Jacquelin Roy or Jacquelin or however. We're anxious to find out how that is pronounced.
It looks like My Worthless Opinions got it. He said Jacquelin
Ward.
So and that kind of makes sense because like in Spanish, it K, like poor K. And then Jacquelin, I believe, is French because you get a lot of like the French kind of that sector in the New Orleans area. And I believe Jacquelin is from like Louisiana. So yeah. And like French is a Latin-based language, just like Spanish and English is. So Jacquelin makes complete sense. Thank you, My Worthless Opinion. Your opinion's not worthless to us, but just know that. But go ahead, Dave.
I thought that was an outstanding pick by the Vikings because
of course you did. He was a big ugly.
I see all sorts of potential. He's got fast feet. He can eat up. He needs to work on shedding blockers better. But he keeps his eyes in the backfield while he deals with those blockers. I like that. I think he's a good developmental prospect that might even work his way into the rotation. I'm not going to bet on that, but I think 2 years down the road, I suspect that's going to be the case. I think this is one of those futurifying picks that we know that we've got him for 4 years, that he's going to grow into being something that's stout and ready to go for the Minnesota Vikings when we need him in future years. And I love the pick. I think it's a great pick there. I'm not complaining. I thought that was fantastic. Now we'll get to your favorite pick. In round 5, at 164, the Vikings got their quarterback. We all know, we all heard the reporting that they were going to go up to number 3 and try to grab Anthony Richardson, and we were all disappointed when that didn't happen. It was sort of a letdown, and then we wait for picks. But we finally got that quarterback. Tell us about the young man out of Utah. BYU, to be exact.
Listen, I still have butterflies in my stomach. I'm so damn excited. I have been on Jaren Hall since the Holy War in 2001 or 2021. That was his second start as the full-time starter. Obviously, Zach Wilson came before him. Look, I am not going to sit here and tell you that Jaren Hall is the future of this team. He's a 5th-round pick. You can't do that. But here's what I will tell you. There is hope that this guy could be the future of this team with some proper development. There's hope. There's real hope. Not we're going to trick ourselves hope like we did with Kellen Mond. I really, really like Jaren Hall. And you can go search my Twitter handle @TheRealForno. And Jaren Hall, you'll see a bunch of tweets. You'll see a bunch of me just in love with Jaren Hall. I don't think there's anybody outside of his family that likes Jaren Hall, the player, more than I do. Like I am so excited about this pick. And he's just a really good football player. He runs a very Sean McVay, Kevin O'Connell style offense at BYU. They run it out of spread formations. Now, here's kind of what that means. You take your spread formations and then you incorporate different route concepts. So basically take what the Vikings do and run most of it out of shotgun. That is like he runs hard mode. Like it's like you're on Madden and he's playing on all Madden. He's doing difficult things at the college level. And because he's doing difficult things at the college level, that's a net positive.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that. I like that he's able to do those difficult things. And he's able to show that he can run through progressions. He's able to show that, hey, not only can I run through progressions, they're giving Mel Kiper Jr. a pumpkin pie on set for his 40th 40th NFL draft with ESPN on there. If you don't know, Mel Kiper Jr. is obsessed with pumpkin pie.
Okay.
That's not a bit. He loves pumpkin pie. So that's really cool. It's got 40 candles. But anyways, when you kind of take a look at Jaren Hall, he can make throws on the run. He's a good athlete, but he doesn't try to run. Something we talked about with Anthony Richardson, he tries to throw the football down the field and kill you that way. He can run. Thomas, as Dave points down in our comments, says that he gets compared to Russell Wilson. There are some real similarities to how they play football. The short bootlegs, the beautiful deep balls, the ability to make every throw, enough athleticism to run, but not so much where you just want to run. He'll kill you with a 15-yard run if he gets space and the play breaks down. He's not going to try to do that. He's not going to want to do that. And I think that's the difference between him and somebody like a Michael Vick, a Lamar Jackson. Like they both were good passers and they could kill you down the field, but they had such an elite level of athleticism where, no, I'll just take 15, 20 yards and then I'll slide and we're good. Like Jaren Hall's not quite to that level. He knows how to work through a full progression, just like you need to do in the pros. He can make the difficult throws. If you go to my Twitter account, go to the media. I posted a few clips already today because I'm just so excited. He can drive the ball from the far hash on a 15-yard out with timing, anticipation, ball placement. He can do all that. He drops the ball in a bucket better than anybody else. Here's what I mean by that. If you put one of those 5-gallon Homer buckets, the orange ones that you get at Home Depot, 50 yards away, he'll hit it. And he'll hit it consistently. Like, that's the kind of passer he is. He needs to work a little bit with his footwork and just keep his feet still. At times he can get a little antsy in the pocket, and that pocket presence will continue to grow and develop. And that's something, because he's already shown it, I'm not super concerned with. But what I am concerned with is sometimes he misses defenders and he'll throw the ball right at them. Guys who show disguises initially, and then he just doesn't see him when he makes the throw. And that's where a lot of his 11 interceptions over the last 2 years have come from. Like 51 touchdowns, 11 picks. That's fine. Yes, Michael, they went to BYU together. So you're looking at that. I believe Tonga was on that 2020 team. Hall played sparingly, but he did not play a lot. So that's something to keep in mind. Look, I'm just over the moon for this guy. And I believe it was Kevin Seifert that tweeted this out earlier. They intentionally showed Jaren Hall a play where the receiver ran the wrong route, trying to see what his reaction would be, how he would handle it for like leadership qualities. And the Vikings knew that the receiver ran the wrong route. And he's like, yeah, I got to be better. I got to identify that and be able to fix it, and not blaming the receiver. So Thomas, that's not the IQ score, but you're on the right track. It's that S2 cognition, the process information. But here's the thing. That's a great number, but the S2 cognition guy who was making the media rounds even said, like, you guys just don't know what that means. Like, you just see the number and you don't know how it breaks down, any of that. So I like it, but I'm not going to call myself an expert. I'm not even going to really comment on it. I'm just like, oh, on paper, that looks pretty dang good. But what I see in the football field is I see a leader. I see a guy with talent. Now, he's 25, but he's a younger 25 than Hendon Hooker because his first 2 years out of high school, he was on a Mormon mission in California. To me, that's a lot different than playing football for 2 years because your body just doesn't absorb as many hits. He does have some injury concerns, had a hip injury, had 2 concussions. had a high ankle sprain that really hindered his Senior Bowl. And my opinion, the only reason why he was available in the 5th round. I love Jaren Hall. And the fact that he's on my football team, I'm just absolutely thrilled. Like, I even shed a couple tears earlier. I was just so happy. But it's also one of those things where there's a high probability he just doesn't develop. And we need to remember that. We want him to develop. We want him to potentially be that guy. Because hitting on a 5th-round quarterback that's your starter, that's massive, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day,
well,
you can't count on it.
He's going to be good to have on the team, as the 3rd quarterback under development. And when we move into next year, there, as somebody wrote, bridge quarterback. Well, that's a possibility, but insurance is what I see it as. And he had, I think it's the highest ever long ball accuracy. PFF's recorded at like 94.7. And that's elite. Anything in the 90s is elite. And the fact that he has that. Now, he has one flaw, and that is he's not good under pressure. And there we have 2 Darrens on the screen as I switch and bring Tyler back in.
Wow, rude. You got rid of me completely.
Even one's too many, but 2 not necessary at all.
Darren, how you doing?
I am doing great. Just too many errands to do today in between other things. But anyway, I'm sure you guys have been holding it down just fine. Tyler's all pleased because we drafted Jaren Hall.
Yeah, He was just getting through that orgasm. Yes. We're talking about how the last comment I was asking on Jaren Hall is how he's scored or graded by PFF low at passing under pressure. Can that be trained out of him? Can he build the confidence? As Mary says, he is coachable.
Yeah, what did Tyler say about him? That getting coached out of him?
He hasn't answered yet. He's banging away at his keyboard. Dave says,
coaching what? Which part?
The pressure in the pocket.
I think he'll be more than capable. The tough part about BYU is they had some good offensive line talent. They've had a couple guys drafted in the NFL, but nobody really, they weren't elite, and his weapons got injured a lot. So 2021, that BYU team won 10 games, and I thought that they had a shot this year if they stayed healthy and they put it together, that they could potentially be a surprise, New Year's 6 entrant. They could win 10-11, maybe even go undefeated at 12-0. But they got injured early and often, and their biggest hurdle was going to be Oregon early in the year. They went into that game without their top 2 receivers, and Hall had to trust true freshmen on the outside, and they kind of had to deal with that kind of stuff all year. They only won 6 games, but I do think that he has the ability to continue to grow. Yeah, he's got talent.
Okay, good. That brings us to the final pick.
Already got questions on that guy.
Yes, of the day, where we selected running back out of UAB, Alabama, Birmingham, Mr. Dwayne McBride.
I like McBride a lot. Dave, I tweeted this. He runs like a car wreck. This dude is built. He's physical, and he just mauls guys. And defenders just kind of bounce off of him. He's just stout. He's incredibly strong. The one reason why he's still available here in this really deep running back class, nobody knows if he can be a receiver. 5 catches in college.
Only targeted nine times in 3 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
He's only 21 years old. So it's not like there hasn't been that like there's not potential there. He's just a complete unknown in a major part of football.
But
We just don't know.
That's the way UAB ran their offense, though.
Oh, yeah, and they ran it completely through Dwayne McBride. McBride was UAB.
Mm-hmm. And he's had the most yards over the last 3 years in college football. He gets yards after contact. His favorite move is the spin move, and as I joked with our buddy Drewster earlier, he spins like Foreman, and he fumbles like Peterson. That's the other problem with him. He tends to drop the ball a few times on the ground.
11 fumbles in 2 seasons is, ball security is an issue. And Michael was asking about why he fell to the 7th round. Well,
there's also rumored off-field issues, whatever they are.
With McBride?
With McBride.
I'll be honest, I haven't heard that, but I'm not saying that they're not there.
That's what I heard on TV, NFL Network.
It would be an odd thing for the Vikings under Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, who's been so big on character team leader guys, at least in the previous draft, and picking a guy like Jay Ward as well. So I'd be surprised that they'd be taking a guy with a supposed character concerns, but sometimes that happens, right? Like,
right. But you also know they do their due diligence, to make sure that nothing is wrong. Now, how do you see McBride fitting in the running back room?
Well, it's pretty crowded right now.
I'll be honest, Dave, it's a weird fit. Alexander Madison, like, McBride is a better version of Madison. When I believed that they were going to take a guy that would be like a compliment to both Madison and Ty Chandler, I was thinking like a Deuce Vaughn and Eric Gray, running back that's more of a pass catcher. But to me, kind of based on what Kwesi Adofo-Mensah was saying and saying that they had a starter grade on him, they just thought the value was too good and they couldn't pass it up. And that's why with this running back class, we talked about, like, you don't need to take a guy high. Now, if you really believe in Bijan Robinson, totally get it. Like, Bijan's incredible. But at the end of the day, you don't need to take a guy super high to get this high ceiling, because this running back class is just ridiculously deep. And they got a guy they view as a potential starter in round 7. Like, that's how you can take advantage of a really deep class. And I like that a lot. Will he do anything? I don't know, but we'll find out.
Mm-hmm. 437 carries the last 2 seasons, so he's got a long workload, a big workload. Now he's only 21, so that's probably not an issue for his first contract. But he's been a workhorse. And
wait, you said somebody only 437 carries?
No, I didn't say only. I said he said 437 carries the past 2 seasons.
No, I just mean like that's combined between the past 2?
Yes.
Oh, that's nothing. Jonathan Taylor had 920. Like 400, that's what like Dameon Pierce had last year. Like, I'm happy with that. That's a guy you might be able to give a decent second contract to.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Okay.
RJ puts out that a lot of McBride's fumbling issues came on that extra effort to get through, get more yards. And with, me joking about Peterson, that was Peterson's issue as well. It was usually fighting for those extra couple yards that when the ball goes, somebody hits it and then it goes. Hopefully they'll get that fixed. But I saw just a quick clip of his playing, and he looks dynamic. You said you think he's a better version of Alexander Madison. I haven't seen Alexander Madison spin and do the things he does. So I think Alexander Madison's more a north-south power type guy than what McBride is from what I saw. Now it's limited, but we'll find out. Yes, Davey, fumbling issues can, for the most part, be corrected. Unless you got real tiny hands, and he doesn't. He's the prototypical size. He looks to be a good ad. That the running back making the run more efficient, I think, is a good way of putting it. I think our young guys in there will be doing well at that. The Madison being there, I'm curious how well that's going to work. But if it fails, they've got the young guys. Ty Chandler and now McBride.
Something that was brought up about McBride is out, and Tyler, I'd be curious to see what you say about it. But with the Vikings bringing in, having like a poor, not an efficient running game last year, a lot of negative stuffed runs with Dalvin Cook. Then they signed Josh Oliver, who's like, top blocking tight end to help with the running game. Now you got McBride, who's like a power runner, never goes down on first contact. Do you think that's kind of what they're thinking here with people trying to copy the Eagles offense and multiple running backs coming in and they just keep coming at you with the power running? That's their thinking here.
Yeah. Here's the thing with Madison. I don't think he's good. And I don't know if you knew that, Darren. I don't think Madison is good at all. I think he's incredibly replaceable. And I think McBride will probably outseat him really early because McBride has good vision. He's got good enough burst. He can go he's got enough burst to get through the hole, get you like 40 yards. Somebody's going to catch him. If you can do 40 yards and you can consistently get me like 10, and his yards after contact, I think, is 4.6 per PFF.
Which is great.
That's insane. That's a very good number. I will gladly take 4.6 yards after contact. That's great. And he's got vision, he's got burst, and just with what the Vikings want to do with a lot of inside zone and duo, and it's everybody's favorite game, inside zone or duo. But I really like the fit, and if he can be any kind of pass receiver, we just don't know if he will be. You're looking at a very talented football player that can make a really big difference for not any money.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of value is just insane.
Yep. But I agree with Darren. Darren, I think they're going to go with that multi-back rotation. Just pound.
Making for a great competition anyway. You got Chandler, McBride, Madison, and then
throwing Wong Wu on some wide stuff.
And Kenny must be thinking, I got to get out of town here quick because I'm just going to be returning kickoffs for the next 2 years with the way this is going.
Can make a good living that way. And of course, there's special teams for all those guys. I'm sure they'll be on them, and we will find out. But that was the 4 selections we made today. Darren, you missed the first 2. Too bad. They're from LSU, defensive back and a big defensive lineman.
Oh, I know who they are, and I like the as they say in Quebec, Jacquelin Roy pick.
See, the French. It's going to be a fun rookie camp coming up when we get to meet these guys even more. I look forward to that. G-Mac Nwangu, running back. Technically, he is.
We've just seen very little evidence of it at the pro level so far.
Well, Anthony talked about Troy Dye. A lot of people were screaming for a linebacker. We did not select any at all in this draft. I thought this draft was extremely weak in that position, and the top guys were gone. It wasn't worth it. We'll see. I'm sure they'll sign at least 1 or 2 in as UDFAs to fill out that room. Same with some more corners. It's going to be interesting.
RJ Kene will not be cut.
No.
highly unlikely. He's an all-pro returner, but that also doesn't mean he has to be used in the running back room. Because I don't think he's ever going to be that guy. And that's unfortunate. He hasn't shown any signs of being able to be that guy to take handoffs in the backfield, to catch the ball. He's an elite returner, and that might just be all he is. And if that's the case, that's okay. It would be nice to get more, but it is what it is sometimes.
And we know our friend Cordero Patterson, he never developed into a great wide receiver at all, but was a fantastic kickoff returner and has since developed into a running back. So it is interesting. Addison to return punts, I doubt it, but
he's got the shiftiness too. I wouldn't. Not as a 173 pounder. I wouldn't.
Mm-hmm. Now, when we talk about special teams, there is a special team player that was drafted today.
Jay Ward.
Mm-hmm. And Josh Metellus said, "Hey, I see you block punts. Can't wait for you to get up here and we get at it." Or something to that effect. So, expect to see a lot of Jay Ward on our special teams, which will be good. That I expect that to continue, that whole competition to block as many kicks and punts as possible. I'm all for it.
Yeah, he'd be he'd be a guy who could replace what Chris Boyd gave you on special teams and maybe more.
That too. Mm-hmm. I was thinking Pat P in the kick blocking department, but yes, that as well. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else you want to highlight on today before we let the good people go?
It's been a long time. Go ahead, Tyler.
No, go, you got it. You got it.
Well, I don't know if this was brought up while I was packing groceries, but it's been a long time since Vikings fans have had this little activity for a draft. Like I kind of calculated it, and then the 6 picks we had today. That's the least since 2009 when we only had 5. When we only did 5, had 5. Now we got Percy Harvin and Phil Loadout in 2019 out of those 5 picks. And also Jasper Brinkley and Jamarcus Sanford, later picks, who ended up being good role players for us. So it was a good draft, even though we didn't have a whole lot of picks. But yeah, up until since 2012, there's only been 2018 and 2016 where we had less than 10 draft picks, and then in a draft. And then the Packers went full Rick Spielman today, and they had 13 draft picks and 4 in the 7th round. So it was a bit weird.
Oh, speaking of favorite picks, Tyler was ecstatic at who they selected as quarterback.
Look, it was the NFL.com's scouting report on Clifford. He struggles throwing the football. Not exactly good when it comes to a quarterback. I don't know how he got drafted, let alone in the top 150. That is one of the worst draft picks I've seen in a long time. You're drafting a camp arm at the beginning of round 5. Mm-hmm. Okay, if you want to take him at 250 just so you can get him in the building, okay. I won't give you crap for it. That's fine. But come on. Like, the Packers had a lot of picks I really liked today. That was an awful, awful, awful selection.
Uh-huh. RJ, you asked, you see us going after a nose tackle as a UDFA? It's possible.
We already did.
Did
the Vikings are expected to sign Illinois nose tackle Calvin Avery. He made a top 30 visit. So,
yes, he did.
The Vikings drafted 3 of their 6 players that made top 30 visits, and they spent a considerable amount of time with Jaren Hall in Mobile, and they also spent time with him at the Combine, and they might have had a virtual visit. I'd have to ask Doogie. I can't remember. But he did not make a top 30, but 4 guys that made top 30s at least are coming into the building.
Another guy I'd expect, when it comes to corners, like I'd expect DJ Ivy. Might want to keep an eye on him. I don't think he's very good, but he was a guy who had a top 30 visit and was one of those guys that might not get drafted. They're looking to fill the cornerback room. He might be, and he's 6'1", so he might be a guy you'll see them add as an undrafted free agent.
Okay.
There's some good players available as UDFAs. I mean, we say that every year, but guys who I really didn't expect to be available, Ivan Pace, I thought he'd get taken like round 4 or 5, and he's still available at the last pick on the clock right now in the Los Angeles Rams. Quarterbacks went off the board. The one who didn't surprised me a little bit, and that's Tyson Bagent, the kid from Shepherd University. Big arm, a lot of tools, but he played in D2, and he had the best arm in Mobile. But coming from D2, that's a very tough transition for any player, especially when it has to process it and do as much as the quarterback position does. So, like, the Vikings have had 67 roster spots filled going into the NFL draft. They have 73 filled right now. The Vikings could have 17 UDFAs. Mm-hmm. This could be a really big UDFA class.
That'd be great. Yeah. Hey, it looks fun. Tomorrow, you guys are going to get Darren and myself, your 2 old bloggers, doing our thing as we break down this draft class even more. Tyler, what have you got going on Monday?
We are going to talk a lot about this class, and you're going to get it on 2 shows. You are going to be seeing me on Purple Daily on Draft, a part of Score North, and you're also going to see me on the Real Forno Show at 6 p.m. live on this YouTube channel. We just passed 500 subscribers, so I can't tell you how much we're appreciative of that. If you liked what you see, please like, subscribe, ask any questions you have in the comments. I will be glad to kind of jump in there and answer them as I have time. You're going to get a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff here moving forward. And the off season is not going to be less content. We're going to continue to go live. We're going to have conversations. We'll probably even maybe do some like Q&As to have some more interaction. And we're going to work on bringing some big name guests in and have a lot of those conversations.
And even I've got one lined up. We're going to be talking to the FFSN, Fans First Sports Network, Pitt affiliate, to talk about Jordan Addison. Because Jordan Addison spent most of his time at Pitt before going to USC, and he loves to talk about Jordan Addison. So we're going to learn more from somebody who watched him all through college, or most of college. It's going to be fun. Hey, with that, what do we say?
SKOL Vikings.
SKOL Vikings, baby. And I blew it on DJ Ivy. I just see he just got drafted by the Bengals, so he ain't going to be an undrafted free agent for us.
Anyways, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Great turnout. We'll see you tomorrow at 4 o'clock Central for 2 old bloggers. And as always, we say, SKOL Vikings! Like, subscribe, and ring the bell. And rate us on your favorite podcast aggregator. Darren and Dave, thank you for watching this episode of 2 Old Bloggers. We look forward to seeing you on every show on the new Vikings First and SKOL. You can find our podcast as part of the Fans First Sports Network. Sports takes for the fan, from the fan. SKOL, everybody!